Chosen Ones, this Friday, the 14th of August, carries a theme you may already feel in your chest before you can explain it in words. A cycle is being cut, and you are being asked not to interfere with the severing. Something in your life has been repeating long enough that you could almost set your calendar by it. The same conversation returns. The same disappointment arrives wearing slightly different clothes. The same hope rises on Monday and quietly collapses by Thursday night. You have prayed about this loop so many times that the words have worn smooth, and yet something about this week feels different in a way you cannot quite dismiss. Perhaps you woke before dawn with an unusual steadiness, as if a knot somewhere inside you had already loosened without your permission. If you have sensed that a season matters without knowing how to name it, that ache has a cost, because unnamed seasons produce confused prayers and exhausted hearts. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey was written as a companion for exactly that kind of ache, helping you identify the season you are living and understand why it feels so significant. It walks you through the daily recognition of what is ending, what is forming, and what is being asked of you now. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. Stay with this message, because what is being cut this Friday is not being taken from you. It is being removed from around you, and there is a difference between those two things that your tired heart needs to hear clearly tonight. Your body has been keeping a record of this cycle even when your mind tried to stay polite about it. Notice your shoulders when the phone lights up with a certain name, the way they climb toward your ears before you even read the message. Notice the shallow breath you take in the car before you walk into your own house, as if you are bracing for a room that should feel like rest. You have slept, but not recovered, and there is a particular fatigue that comes from ending a week inside the same loop you ended the last one in. Your jaw stays tight through meals. Your hands pause over the keyboard a half-second too long. These are not random symptoms of attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. A busy life, they are the physical signature of a person who has been circling the same field for a long time, and your body knew about the repetition before your spirit let you admit it. When Scripture speaks of groaning that words cannot express, it is describing this exact moment, the Tuesday afternoon exhaustion of the soul that cannot articulate what it already knows. You are not weak for feeling this. You are honest, and honesty is the only ground where a cycle can actually be named and cut. Here is what this message can responsibly offer you, and it matters that you hear it as recognition rather than as a promise of magic. This Friday can become a marker for you, a date on which you stopped cooperating with a pattern that had already lost its life. You may not be able to control what other people do, what doors close, or what finally ends, but you can choose to stop retying what is coming loose. By the end of this time together, You will be able to name the cycle with precision instead of dread. You will understand why your instinct to interfere with the ending is actually fear, wearing the costume of loyalty. And you will have concrete practices for letting the cut complete itself without panic. You will also see why the command not to impede is not passive resignation, but one of the most active forms of faith a person can practice. Not abandonment, but preparation. Not proof, but recognition. That is the contract of this message. Clarity about what is ending. Courage about what your hands must release, and peace about what you never had to hold together in the first place. Picture an ordinary morning this week. You're standing in the kitchen and the coffee has gone lukewarm because you picked up your phone instead of your cup. And there it is again, the same thread, the same request, the same small negotiation you have had 100 times. Your thumb hovers. The old you would answer immediately, smoothing things over, patching the crack, keeping the machinery of the cycle turning because keeping it turning felt safer than discovering what silence might reveal. But this morning, something in you simply does not move toward the old reflex. It is not anger. It is not strategy. It is a quiet refusal that feels almost like rest, and it startles you because you did not plan it. You set the phone face down on the counter. You drink the coffee even though it is cold. And in that small, unremarkable act, you experience in miniature what this Friday is about at full scale. The cutting of a cycle does not always arrive as an explosion. Sometimes it arrives as the first morning you do not feed the thing that has been feeding on you. You noticed the repetition before the people around you did, and that noticing is not arrogance. It is simply what happens to a person who has been paying attention to their own life with honesty. Others can live inside a loop for decades and call it normal, but you reached the point where normal started to feel like a low-grade ache you could no longer ignore. The hardest part of where you stand may not be the waiting itself, but not knowing what the waiting means, not knowing whether you are being asked to endure, to release, to rebuild, or to begin again. That confusion is exactly what the call of the Chosen a 30-day journey addresses, offering a framework for recognizing the signs of your season, organizing your prayers around what is actually happening, and distinguishing waiting from closure and redirection from loss. Many readers who arrived feeling confused or tired of waiting said the material helped them understand their season more clearly and stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. And here is the bridge you need to cross next. The moment you can see the cycle clearly is also the moment something will try to blur your vision again. Clarity attracts resistance the way light attracts insects, and you should know that before the opposition arrives. The first opposition will not look like an enemy. It will look like reasonableness. It will sound like your own voice saying, maybe give it one more chance, maybe next month will be different, maybe cutting this off is actually quitting, and quitting is actually failure. It will arrive as a wave of nostalgia for the very thing that exhausted you, because the mind edits the past when the present feels uncertain, and suddenly the loop will be remembered as comfortable instead of corrosive. Distraction will offer itself too, 100 small urgencies that all seem to need you this Friday. Anything to keep your hands busy and your attention scattered, so the severing never gets your full consent. Fear will do its oldest work, asking what happens after the cut, as if you were ever the one holding the universe together with your worry. And comparison will whisper that other people seem to hold their cycles together just fine, which is a lie built from photographs and polite answers. Name all of this now before it comes, because opposition that has been named in advance loses most of its power to ambush you. The cycle you are releasing had years to build its defenses. You only need one honest Friday to stop defending it. Think of Joseph, standing in an Egyptian prison with a reputation destroyed by lies, years after his brothers threw him into a pit and called it justice. His cycle was betrayal, repeating itself across decades, slavery, false accusation, forgotten promises, one cell after another. And then, in the space of a single day, the cycle was cut. He woke a prisoner and slept as the second most powerful man in the nation. And nothing he did that morning caused it. It had been forming beneath the surface the entire time. Notice what Joseph did not do when the summons came. He did not run back to negotiate with the prison. He did not send a message to the cupbearer asking whether the timing was really right. He shaved, he changed his clothes, and he walked toward the door that had opened because he understood that when God severs a season, the faithful response is to let it stay severed. Your Friday may not carry a palace, but it carries the same pattern in a smaller key. The pit was not the end of Joseph's story, it was the middle. Whatever has felt like your pit is also a middle, and middle's end. Consider what it has cost you to keep ignoring this signal, not as a threat, but as an honest accounting. Every time you re-entered the loop after sensing it should end, you traded a piece of your peace for a few days of familiarity. Your prayers became shorter and more mechanical, because it is hard to bring your whole heart to God about something you have already decided to keep managing yourself. Your attention grew dull in the places that mattered, present at the table but absent behind the eyes, because a person carrying an unfinished ending is never fully anywhere. Obedience kept getting postponed to a more convenient season. And convenient seasons have a way of never arriving on their own. None of this makes you a failure. It makes you human, and it makes this Friday significant because the cost of a cycle is never paid all at once. It is paid in small daily installments of joy, and at some point the soul simply decides it is done paying. You may be at that point. If you are, that is not bitterness talking. That is arithmetic. Even the most patient heart eventually totals the ledger and closes the account. So hear the reframe clearly, chosen one. This Friday is not about something being taken from you. It is about something being finished, and you are invited to be a witness to the finishing rather than an obstacle to it. The cycle that is being cut needed your participation to survive, and your participation is the one thing you are now permitted to withdraw without guilt. You do not have to announce it, perform it, or prove it. You simply have to stop feeding what is already dying, and let the 14th of August be the date your cooperation ended. If you receive this as the confirmation your spirit has been circling for weeks, type 888 in the comments as a simple sign of alignment with what is being cut, then come right back to these words. There is more you need to understand, because the cut is only the visible edge of something deeper. The loop did not live only in your circumstances. Some part of it took up residence inside you, and that is where the real work of this message turns next. Because here is the truth that sits underneath the repeating conversations and the repeating disappointments. The cycle kept finding a doorway in you, not because you are broken, and not because you invited harm, but because some old pattern in your inner life kept agreeing with the loop's terms. Maybe it was the belief that your worth is proven by how much you can endure. Maybe it was the reflex to keep peace at any cost, even when the cost was always billed to you. Maybe it was the quiet conviction that letting something end means you failed to save it. Whatever it is older than this particular season, and this Friday's cutting will only hold if the inner pattern is named with the same honesty you are giving the outer one. This is good news, not accusation. What has a name can be released. What stays vague stays in charge. The external cycle was always the symptom. The internal agreement was the root, and roots can be pulled. The root, in one sentence, is this. Somewhere along the way you learned to confuse holding things together with being faithful. You became the person who absorbs the impact, who reopens the conversation that should have closed, who mistakes exhaustion for virtue and calls self-abandonment love. Recognition alone will not carry you through this Friday, because a person can see a cycle clearly and still feed it out of habit, and insight without application leaves the heart just as tired as confusion. This is where the call of the chosen. A 30-day journey becomes a practical companion rather than another explanation, walking with you through daily reflection, prayer, discernment, and the identification of the next faithful step instead of the next panic-driven reaction. It is built for the moment you are in right now, when you know something must end and you need help ending it well. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. And understand what the root does when it is exposed. It does not apologize, it negotiates. It will tell you that releasing your grip is reckless, that your vigilance is the only thing standing between order and chaos. But you were never the glue of the universe. You were only ever the child of the one who is. Your mind, your body, and your spirit have been processing this cycle on 3 different levels, and learning to tell them apart will steady you this week. Your mind builds cases and arguments, it rehearses conversations in the shower, it drafts speeches you never deliver, and it believes that if it can just find the right explanation, the loop will resolve. Your body tells the truth faster than your mind does. It tightens before the phone call. It exhales when a certain person leaves the room. It knows on Tuesday what your thoughts will not admit until Friday. And your spirit operates underneath both of them, in that wordless place where you simply know that a season has shifted, the way you can feel weather changing before the first cloud crosses the sky. None of these 3 is the enemy. The mind is a gift that overreaches. The body is a witness that never lies. And the spirit is a compass that only fails when it is ignored. This Friday, let them agree with each other for once. Let your mind stop arguing with what your body already reported, and let both of them bow to what your spirit recognized weeks ago. Alignment is not a feeling. It is 3 witnesses finally telling the same truth. The people around you will respond to this cutting in different ways, and you need discernment here, not suspicion. Some will feel the shift immediately and resist it, because your cycle was convenient for them even though it was costly for you, and they will reach for the old version of you the way a hand reaches for a familiar tool. Others will barely notice, because they were never inside the loop, and their indifference may sting more than resistance would. A few, a precious few, will recognize what is happening and quietly stand with you in it, and you will know them because they will not ask you to explain or defend the ending. Do not isolate yourself while this unfolds. Isolation is the root's favorite hiding place, and the enemy of a clean cut is not community, but the wrong counsel. You are allowed to love people whose season alongside you is changing. You are allowed to bless a connection and still let the form of it be cut. Discernment means seeing clearly and staying warm at the same time, seeing the pattern without hardening the heart. That is the narrow road of this Friday, and it is walkable, one honest conversation at a time. Understand the strategy of what has opposed you, because it is not creative, it is repetitive, and repetition exposed loses its grip. Noise has been its first weapon, filling every quiet space with urgency so you never sit still long enough to feel what you actually feel. Fatigue has been its second, because a tired person defaults to the familiar, and the cycle survives on your defaults. Delay has been its third, always suggesting that next month, after the holiday, after things calm down, will be the right time to let go. And delay disguised as patience is one of the oldest tricks in the arsenal, and lesser urgency has been its fourth, the parade of small fires that all demand your water, while the one thing that actually matters quietly continues to burn. None of this requires a dramatic enemy, it only requires your inattention. That is why this message keeps returning to one simple act. Pay attention this Friday. Watch what tries to pull you back into the loop in the exact hours when the loop is being cut. The opposition is not stronger than you. It has only ever been more scheduled than you. And this week you are taking back your calendar. The turning point, if you let it come, will not feel like a movie. It will feel like a quiet sentence you say to yourself in an ordinary room, something like, "I am not doing this anymore." And the strange part is the absence of drama. No surge of anger, no collapse of grief, just a clean interior stop, the way a machine sounds when it finally powers down after running for years. In that moment, you stop negotiating with the truth. You stop asking the cycle to become something other than what it has repeatedly shown itself to be. You stop drafting the speech that would fix everything because you finally understand that the cycle was never waiting for better words. It was waiting for your continued participation. And participation is the one supply you have the authority to cut off. This is what the 14th of August is asking of you. Not a performance of strength, not a declaration to anyone else. Just the private, irreversible decision to agree with the ending that is already underway. Everything that follows in this message builds on that single interior hinge. When the inside stops negotiating, the outside stops arguing. Now let me give you an image to carry through this Friday, because some truths are held better in a picture than in a sentence. Imagine a boat that has been tied to the same dock for a very long season. The rope is thick, old and weathered, looped around the cleats so many times that it has practically fused with the wood. The boat was tied there for good reason once. There was a season for shelter, a season for repair, a season when the open water would have been the wrong place entirely, and you should honor that the tying was once wisdom. But seasons change, and the water beyond the harbor has been calling in a way the tied vessel can feel in its whole frame, a restlessness that is not discontent but design. A boat is not built for the dock. It is built for the water, and every day it stays tied past its season. It does not become safer, it becomes more fragile, its hull settling into a shape the open sea never intended. Keep this image close, because everything about your cycle, its cutting, and the command not to interfere lives inside this rope, this dock, and this waiting boat. Stay inside the harbor with me, because the formation of this moment happened when no one could see it. While the boat sat tied, things were being strengthened that the dock never taught. The hull was being sealed against water it had not yet met. The rigging was being tested by winds that arrived as inconveniences and left as training. Even the stillness had a curriculum, because a vessel learns the difference between rest and captivity only by experiencing both. You did not see this formation while it was happening, because hidden work always looks like nothing from the outside, and you probably grieve the tied years as wasted ones. They were not wasted. The season at the dock was not the absence of the journey. It was the preservation of the traveler, and the rope that held you was, for a time, mercy and not prison. That distinction matters because if you hate the dock, you will misread the cutting, and if you worship the dock, you will resist it. Honor what the season was, grieve what it cost, and recognize that everything formed in the hidden years is precisely what the open water will now require. Nothing was lost. It was loaded. Now see the opposition inside this image, because the rope did not stay the same across the years. It changed its meaning while keeping its shape. What began as shelter became habit, and habit hardened into something that argued for itself. Each frayed fiber that should have signaled the end was instead reinforced by fear, another loop around the cleat, another reason to stay tied, until the rope was less a single cord and more an accumulation of every postponement you ever made. Barnacles grew on the hull below the waterline, the quiet weight of comforts and compromises that no one saw, slowing a vessel that had not moved in so long it had forgotten it was designed to move. And here is the sharpest part of the picture. The boat itself began to maintain its own rope. That is what a cycle does to a person over time. The thing that once held you eventually trains you to hold it, to check its knots, to defend its necessity to anyone who questions it, to call the captivity stability and the stillness peace. The deepest opposition to your cutting this Friday will not come from the dock or the rope. It will come from the part of you that has been tying and retying both. Now watch the movement, because this is what this Friday is about. The rope has frayed past the point where reinforcement is honest, and the cutting, when it comes, is not violent. It is almost quiet. One final fibre giving way, and then the whole cord falling slack into the water with a small sound that somehow echoes through the entire harbour. For a moment, the boat does not move at all. There is a pause after every true severing, a breath where the vessel floats free but has not yet caught the current, and that pause is where you will be tempted to panic, to lunge for the rope, to call the stillness a mistake and reach for the familiar cleat with both hands. Do not. The pause is not abandonment. It is the first moment of freedom, learning your weight. Then the current takes the bow, gently, the way a hand turns a shoulder, and the harbour that held you for a whole season begins to widen behind you, and you realize the open water was never the threat. It was the destination. This is the cutting you must not impede, the quiet severing of a cord that had already finished its work, and the first unhurried movement of a vessel finally doing what it was built to do. You can feel where you are in this picture, and that recognition is the entire point of the image. Some of you are still at the cleat with the rope in your hands, and this Friday is asking you to set it down. Some of you are in the pause, the cord already fallen, floating in the strange silence between the harbour and the open water, and you need to hear that the stillness is not a sign. Something went wrong. It is the sign something finally went right. And some of you already feel the current at the bow, that first subtle turning, and you are equal parts thrilled and terrified, which is exactly what the beginning of movement feels like for a vessel that was tied for a long time. If you see yourself anywhere in this harbour, if the rope and the dock and the slow turn of the bow named something your spirit already knew, type "I am untied" in the comments as your quiet acknowledgement, then return to these words. Because the cutting is not the end of the story. What matters now is how you live as an untied vessel, and that is where this message carries you next. The return is not a performance. After the rope falls, you do not owe the dock a speech, and you do not owe the harbour an explanation of where you're going. This is the mistake so many sincere people make at the exact moment of their cutting. They turn the severing into a production, announcing it, justifying it, defending it to audiences who were never assigned to approve it, and in the noise of the performance they miss the quiet current entirely. Your cutting this Friday needs almost no witnesses. It needs your attention and your consent, and beyond that, it needs your restraint. Not performance, but return. Return to the simplicity of being a vessel in the water, moved by a current you did not manufacture and cannot rush. Let other people narrate your ending however they choose. Their narration is not your assignment. You spent enough years managing what the cycle thought of you. The untied life begins the moment you hand the commentary back and keep your eyes on the water ahead, because the open sea rewards attention and punishes self-consciousness, and you have entered waters where presence matters more than explanation. Here is the first practice, and it is deliberately small, because large resolutions rarely survive the week they are born in. Beginning. Friday morning, before you touch your phone, sit at the edge of your bed and speak one sentence that names what has been cut. Not a paragraph, not a negotiation, one sentence. Something like, "That season is finished, and I release it." Then take 3 slow breaths and let your shul. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.